I always like to say, hello, Monroe. Welcome to the lovely world of long-term care planning. It's the one and only father-daughter team of Lou and Jessica Pelletier, not the ambulance chasing Carter folks, but we're the good guys. Jessica's going to be our maestro today. You know, she's the technology wizard to put all this together. Hopefully, we'll have some fun with a topic that's not always the most fun topic.
But yes, as we go through, please ask questions. You know, this is your class at the end of the day, and there's no such thing as a silly or stupid question, because bottom line, maybe you have a question that your neighbor has that. So yes, is everyone ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Our mission is to boldly go where nobody from Monroe has gone before, truly learn about the world of long-term care planning. From what legal documents to what insurance options are out there. We're going to go through all the different venues, the pros and cons of the different types of long-term care insurance. There's things called short-term care, which a lot of people don't even know exist. And also the newer hybrid plans that are out there that are kind of changing the dynamics of long-term care planning. So one of the things, remember that COVID thing that was going on a few years back? So all our classes went from live in person to Zoom or not at all. So one of the things we've tried to do is get more information out to folks. So one of the things we've created is a long-term care planning guide. So if you happen to have your little smartphone with the camera, hopefully you point the camera at the squiggly line, otherwise called the QR code. Hopefully a link pops up. You just have to click on the link, you put your email address, and you'll be sent that lovely guide. It's really a nice piece that we've been able to put together. So, and we'll show this later on in the class. It's different than the QR code that might be on the little handout that we gave, which is more about our website. So legal planning for long-term care, and why is it so important to plan? And again, we see more and more, advisors telling people either you don't have enough assets, don't worry about it, or you have so much assets you can just pay out of pocket. So let's kind of chop away at why that may not be the best.
Break it down.
All right. So on the legal side of things, there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. Are you able to qualify for Medicaid, or should you get other legal options in effect? So let's start with Medicaid. You want to go this way? We'll let it.
I want to go this way because ultimately, one of the things we come across, which is why I put this in, is right now we're seeing 1 in 4 people have an updated will. So what are the most important documents that we think everyone should have in this room or on the computer?
So the first is a financial power of attorney, which comes in. You didn't miss a thing. It's all the good stuff.
Thank you.
Just got to the good stuff.
So the first is a financial power of attorney. This allows somebody else to act in your behalf financially. But it actually comes in 2 flavors. The durable, which I'm showing here, then the limited, technically it's called spring. So a durable power means somebody can act in your behalf financially, whether you're in good health, bad health, traveling, whatever it might be. So whoever has a durable power, better be somebody you trust, a spouse, a sibling, somebody that, a child, anybody you think that, I'm traveling in Europe and there's a flood here in Monroe, or God forbid, I'm in a car accident. Somebody can have access to your funds to keep the lights on, to pay whatever bills that are going on until you either recover or whatever. So durable allows somebody to have access to your funds in good health or not. Then you can get what's called a limited power, maybe for a backup person. The limited, which technically is called springing power of attorney, like a spring. It allows somebody only to have access to your funds if there's been a springing event. Again, you're traveling in Europe and there's a flood here, or you're in a car accident, something happens. That would qualify, that would let somebody get access to maybe the checking account, maybe write a bill, whatever it might be. So you can have one durable power, you can have multiple. You can have one springing or backup, or you can have multiple. Hopefully you kind of pick one, because you don't want to have too many different people potentially having access. But it's a nice thing to have in case the emergency arises. And these are all things that you can add on to your will, basic documents. They call codicils to a will that you can add on or update or make changes. The second one is becoming huge is the medical power of attorney, which allows somebody to act in your behalf medically. I'll give you one of the big things that's happened in the last 20 years. Has anybody been to the situation where they've either themselves or somebody knows been to that old emergency room and you're not feeling well and they decide they want to keep you overnight, but rather than admitting you to the hospital, what do?
Observation.
Observation. What do you want to do if you hear the word observation? Scream. Because from a Medicare standpoint, you're not under Part A, which is your hospital coverage. You're under Part B, which is anything else, doctors, outpatient, whatever. And Part B, depending on what else you have for coverage, Medicare pays 80%, you're on the hook for 20. That's just one part of it. When you are put on that floor to be under observation, is your doctor going to be in charge of you? Your primary, your cardiologist, depending on whatever your issue is? Who's the doctor that's going to be in charge of you? What's that term? Hospitalist. Does the hospitalist know you? He doesn't know you from Adam. And their job is to get you the hell out of their hospital. Now, a hospitalist, if they like, they could reach out to your team if they like, but they're not required to. And depending who you get, the luck of the draw, they may not do that. So by having somebody have this medical power of attorney, it allows them to reach out to your team. If you had a heart issue, to reach out to your cardiologist or pulmonologist or nephrologist or pick your ologist, and including your primary. End of the day, is it going to change you from being under observation to being admitted? Potentially, but not likely. But more importantly, it just lets you get involved with what's going on. You try to have, if you can have multiple people, again, be this position, but let's say you have 3 kids. I wouldn't give each kid the medical power of attorney because the doctor is only going to want to speak to one person. So you want to pick somebody that you really feel is going to have your back, that's going to do what, again, if you're not feeling well, you're in a coma, you're whatever your situation is, you want somebody that can really be the point person to reach out to your team to make sure. Go ahead.
Is that the same as a healthcare proxy, healthcare representative?
Yeah, they have various different names because years ago, everything was under that first bullet point. Everything, the financial and medical were all together. Then they spread them out. There's things called Medicaid power of attorneys, Medicare power of attorneys, healthcare proxies. They all basically do the same thing. Allow somebody else to, to be proactive for you medically. But again, if you don't have one, and now with smartphone technology, you can literally have a picture, a PDF on your phone, show that to them. And depending where you are, some places will let you fill out a form right then and there, but they more times than not, they won't. So again, this is stuff just to be proactive. So should that bad situation arise, you've already got your ducks lined up.
I'm inquiring about this now, so I've spoken to this is for my son who's 60 years old and ill. But I was trying to get the medical power of attorney, and I see that they're online and there's lawyers to do it, so I know.
So here's, and we just have been going through this more with the first.
Okay,
So there's certain verbiage that needs to be in, whether it's the financial power of attorney or medical, or it can be turned away by the world of probate and so forth. So if it's not written properly, like LegalZoom does a decent job, but maybe not enough on the durable power. I mean, for the basic will and so forth, they're fine. But once you start adding in these codicils, these various powers and so forth, then maybe you want to bring in the cavalry.
I was mostly inquiring about the medical.
Yeah, and I get medical is more cut and dry against to have somebody, because ultimately you reach out to that primary care, look, it's my mom, it's my spouse, hopefully they know you, but if not, I've got the medical power. Could you please call the hospital and see what's going on, and the same thing, with whoever it might be. So, that it forces the hand of the hospital to let that person speak to them. Here's the other one. Anybody heard of dialysis? Which 20 years ago, you can have the whole family in there when a person was getting all their blood, taken out and so forth. Now, everything is, it's only the person allowed in there is the person receiving the dialysis. And typically, if you're going 3 times a week, that doctor may, come in once a week to speak to the patient, but nobody else is there. And if you're under dialysis, you're probably not feeling so great depending on what's going on. So you're really comprehending all the things they're saying or asking the questions. So again, having a medical power of attorney, you can call up that whoever the nephrologist, whoever's in charge of that, to say, look, you were just in there with my husband. I want to know what the hell's going on.
But they couldn't go in.
No, they're not allowed. No, they're not allowed anymore.
These are new rules that's happening, which is why I actually just put this slide in, because we're, like I said, it's so important to have a medical power of attorney. Because what happens, you're in a car accident, or you're in somewhere on vacation. You can save this document, like a PDF on your cell phone. It's legal, because you never know when an emergency is going to come up. And
Right.
ultimately, whether the main person or a backup person, this way someone you trust. Okay, ready?
And finally is the will. That's the catch-all bucket, which is, again, we're going to get into living trust and some of these other things a little bit, but basically it's anything that doesn't have a named beneficiary on it is going to go through the will. So any legal contract you have, an IRA, 401k, life insurance, an annuity, all of those have a beneficiary or multiple beneficiaries. So whoever's named on there, it's going to go. Can't be contested.
If you name someone.
If you name someone, or like you have a checking account, at the bank, or if you have a money in the credit union, you can either have it say JTWROS, joint with rights of survivorship, or TOD, transfer on death. So if something happens, it's going to go to whoever you've named on.
And one more tidbit, because you just brought it up. Check your beneficiaries. Make sure whether life insurance, annuities, whatever, any type of documents that you have that have beneficiaries, make sure they are who you want them to be. When we come across that, maybe so you did them a long time ago. So ready? So now we're
Back to Medicaid.
because I had to throw in some.
So a lot of people are confused with what is Medicaid, so forth. Like, remember we were talking before about, that person has the stroke, you're in the ICU, you don't even know what the outcome is going to be yet, the diagnosis. I'd always tell people, apply for Medicaid immediately. Even if you know you may never qualify, because it starts the look back period on the clock. So say it's April 1st, 2024. It's going to take the state 2 months before they're going to knock on your door to say, okay, you've applied for Medicare for your spouse, mom, whoever it might be. This allows you the time to put your ducks in a row. Because again, that person who has the stroke, if it's the TIA that they recover, even though you've started the Medicaid, you can get rid of the process. And vice versa, if you start the Title 19 and the person's situation is terminal. But what if it isn't? What if it's going to be that debilitating paralysis and everything else? It allows you to get things moving, even though they may not come to you till June 1st. It goes back to the June 1st. So
So like for Connecticut,
every state has different rules.
right, so what we're talking about is strictly Connecticut, right?
Correct. Because unfortunately, a lot of things in the government are federally regulated, but state run. And Medicaid is one of those state run things from both income, assets, and so forth. So what are the current limits in 2024? These are the current numbers. So if you're married and one spouse is in the nursing home, the survivor is allowed to keep the home, keep one car, and keep up to $154,140. But to keep the $154,140, you have to have double that amount. You need 308 and change. So to protect for the survivor, 154,140, you got to have 308, 280.
Assets or income?
Cash-based assets. We're going to get into income in a second. If you're single, widow, divorce, whatever it might be, you can't protect your home or car. You can only protect 1,600.
And can you define Title 19? I think I know what it is, but just.
It's what Medicaid is.
When the state comes in.
State will come into paid
And,
away.
and you need like long-term care, like in a nursing home. or
Correct.
something.
Yeah, for the state to come in and pay the way for that nursing home, whatever it might be. So I always, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but was ever, let's say a husband and wife is in the nursing, well, we're going to pick on the husband because they're always getting stuff happen. Your income, they're going to go up. So if you're collecting Social Security, depending how else you're paying for it, they could attach it. If you've got a pension, they can attach it. Anything that's money that's going towards you, they can attach it. Your assets are jointly held, whether they're separately held or not. You're a package deal. But no, what's not touched is the income of the non-institutionalized spouse. The spouse that's not in the nursing home is protected, and there's other ways they can protect more than just their income.
Quick one. The no home and that for a single person, no home and everything.
Yeah.
No car. So let's say, for instance, I was a single person and I had a home and car and everything. So for me to go on Medicaid or for the state to pay my bill, I guess, they would attach my home and car
They would, it'd be a quick, it'd sell everything.
and they'd sell them. Okay, and let's say, I mean, for some reason I came out of the nursing home in 3 months. It got better.
That's the problem.
Then what happened? My house is gone,
It's
but
gone.
I guess they give me the money back that wasn't used to pay the bill.
And ultimately, they're gonna go through the easy stuff first. If you have cash base, it's
Right.
easy, go to the ATM, they're gonna go after that. The houses could take a little longer to
Yeah.
sell, so hopefully they haven't sold it yet,
Right.
hopefully they have enough in the bank.
Right.
But they will go through whatever.
It's like a house under foreclosure. They're gonna try to sell it and make something out of it because they want the bill paid.
Sure, yeah. And I guess again, if you came out 3 months, didn't use all the money, they'd at least give you the money back. They sold it.
And there's been laws that have come and gone over the years.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're in 2024. Some of the things that was available even 10 years ago is gone.
So what are you saying that for the person for not touched, to put buckets of money in separate accounts?
The problem is assets can be specifically titled to one person because they're what's called a qualified asset. An IRA, a 401k, or 403b is under that person's tax ID. And for you to take your IRA while you're alive and to move it to the spouse, it would create a taxable event. So if you have $500,000 in a 401k, you want to get it out of your name to try to hide it, well, then you're going to be paying 36% of that 500,000.
And wouldn't you have to do it 5 years before the event or not?
That's separate. That's
Okay.
But let's keep going. We are gonna cover a lot. We're only at the very beginning stages.
so. Again, other documents that are things that people can consider. One of the things is for that married couple, while you're both healthy and life is good, is to transfer the home into an irrevocable trust. So again, now, even though as a married couple, you're both allowed to have one spouse keep the home and allowed, it just kind of starts getting a position set up. The other thing is you can create from your will something called a testamentary trust, which only gets created when one spouse dies. Now, this next slide.
Are you sure?
So if you have your little cameras here, this might be a
This
good one to take a picture of. So what is the pros of having a testamentary trust? Basically, it's designed to protect assets for the surviving spouse. Again, the government doesn't care. They'll always take care of whoever needs care. They just don't care about the survivor. So if you can do some things to start positioning assets, should something happen. So again, from a pro standpoint, it allows for asset management, to manage the assets of the deceased on behalf of the beneficiaries. Estate tax reduction currently is not a big deal because the state tax is at 23 million or whatever it is for a couple. But in 2025, there's a sunset, so we don't know what the new number is going to be. It's not going to go that low, but who knows? Again, beneficiary control that allows control over asset distribution of beneficiaries. You can name a minor as a beneficiary, and the assets get paid out when they reach a certain age. You have a 3-year-old, you can say they can only get the money when they turn 18. So it's gonna be like your butler from the grave. The one disadvantage is that a testamentary trust does go through probate, which is the legal process of distributing assets through the court. So one of the tools in the toolbox for trying to hide assets or protect assets for the survivor is something called the Medicaid annuity. This is something you do if one spouse is already in the nursing. You haven't done it, you haven't done other things. So if it's an asset that's not an IRA or 401k, you just transfer it in. It creates an immediate income stream. It's basically turning an asset into an income. Because remember, all assets above that 154 are includable. So this basically changes the status. But what happens if you have to move that IRA or 401k into here? Well, then you're going to be hit with an immediate tax hit. Whatever you're, if you're, depends how much you're moving in. If it's 100,000, 500,000, million, whatever it might be, then there could be, you have to weigh out what's the prognosis for the person needing care. Is it a short-term one, or is it the Alzheimer's, something that's going to drag out where they're just going to burn assets like no tomorrow? And we're going to get into what's it cost these days to take care of somebody. So basically what this does, so as we talk about, this annuity helps reduce the couple's non-exempt assets, making them eligible for Medicaid benefits. It creates an income stream for the healthy spouse above and beyond what they're getting from their Social Security if they're on it. And again, since Medicare doesn't cover long-term care costs, it's a nice tool to have in place, if you're trying to protect what's left. Again, this is something you don't do in advance. The Medicaid annuity is something you do when the clock has struck midnight and you're trying to scramble, catastrophic plan.
And ultimately to stop the bleed. So, because like we were just talking before, they will go through everything. So this is a great tool. It's like I said, if you're in the home and you have whatever the amount is, that you can protect something so they're not bleeding you dry.
So that spouse can continue to ride their bike.
Oh, yeah. There you go. So what are some non-exempt assets?
Basically, anything that the government can tap into that they can convert to cash and take them. So again, if it's in cash, boom, gone. Life insurance policies up anything above $1,500. Any stocks, bonds, money market accounts, second homes, second cars, any other asset that can be converted to cash, they can go after.
So life insurance policies that you had a beneficiary on, they could still grab them, I guess.
Correct. Only it's upon death it's going to pay.
Right.
If you're still alive, they can get and there's 50,000 of cash value, they can wipe out
The
most of
cash
the
value.
cash value. All right. So what are assets that are exempt? Meaning they can't go after. So again, generally one home. Now, there used to be asset limits, but we've seen you can have $1 million home and that home is still going to be protected when it comes to Medicaid calculations. Owning a home does not always require spending down. Obviously, if you've got a second investment home, vacation home, whatever it might be, those are includable. They can force that down. Personal belongings, yes, you're allowed to keep your basic clothes and furniture, that one car. You can create a burial trust, which you can put a certain amount of dollars in there for not just the funeral, for the party after and all that. And then if a 401k or IRA is paying out, in other words, it's paying out a distribution, depending on what state you are, those can be protected also. By the way, there is a final exam at the end, so.
So yeah, now after we just covered all the legal options. Now we're gonna go through your options for the long-term care side of the fence. What are your options for the insurance? So what planning can you do now? Ready?
I'm ready.
I hope they're ready with us. All right, I promise, we're gonna cover it all. So,
All right, so a lot of people, they think Medicare for folks that are going on Medicare, well, that's gonna give me, something, or maybe all of it. Well, Medicare only gives coverage if you're in a skilled nursing facility. Like you had the stroke and they want you to go to the skilled nursing after open heart surgery, maybe you had the busted leg like I certainly did, and they want you to go to rehab after. The way Medicare works is typically your first 20 days, they'll give you 100% coverage. Then day 21 to day 100, they'll give you partial coverage. Maybe your copay is $200 a day. So that's for a skilled nursing facility, not a nursing. Intermediate care, which requires less skilled care, again, you have coverage only for the first 20 days. But if it's that custodial care, nursing home, whether it's to help with the activities of daily living, ADLs or memory, that is not covered. There is no long-term care from Medicare. And just that alone, the number of people think they're going to get some coverage there. It's not.
so what are some activities of daily living? And I put this slide in because to qualify for assistance, how many do you need?
You have to be able to not perform at least two of those activities of daily living. Whether it's bathing, dressing, going to the bathroom, moving from a chair to the bed or a bed to the chair, transferring in and out of a car. You had issues with the old bladder, bowel, continence, and then, feeding that requires, assistance as far as actual eating, not somebody making you the dinner, but you actually have trouble. So if you can't do at least two of those
Or more?
more, then you're going to be eligible. That's going to hit the trigger. So of course there's all different types now of care, from the nursing home to the assisted living, which gives you some, to the hospice care when you're on the final stretch, to adult daycare, the granny drop off for the day, to home health care,
So you can stay home and get somebody to come to you.
which people don't drive around the weekends looking at that nursing home. That's a place I like that.
Well, I hope not. If they're doing that, then they're really prepared. If they're really driving around and knowing which places are around.
Maybe certain places down in Greenwich or wherever. It's not too shabby, but.
I guess you gotta do what you gotta do, But
So we're gonna go through some of the different types of care.
but no, first we gotta go through the cost of
Oh,
care.
it's not, there's no cost. It's just walking.
But the reason why we put this in is because what is the cost of care? Does anybody know? And here it is.
So you go to semi-private room and you're gonna have
Per month.
per month.
And
These
this
are
is average,
averages.
and this is average,
That's the
depending on where you
state
are.
average. As we get in the state average, as we get to this little area and head south and west, they go up. So yes, if you're in a room with a roommate that maybe has Alzheimer's, that maybe snores all night or talks, the average is 15,000 a month
Or more.
or more. And these are just for room and board, by the way. That just gives you a bed and 3 meals a day. No other services. Everything is like Ruth Chris Steakhouse. It's a la carte. You want the petite filet mignon? That'll be $30.99. Oh, you like the garlic mashed potatoes? We're gonna whack you there for $8.99 for that. Well, it's the same thing there.
McDonald's.
Whatever it takes. So again, the private room on average is 16,500 a month. And again, just multiply those numbers times 12. 180 to 190 for just basic. And like I said, we're having facilities that are hitting 20,000 a month. And what if you have to go into a respiratory care facility?
And actually, one of our classes, this was before COVID, was how much a day? Did she tell us?
Pre-COVID, it was $1,200 a day, pre-COVID. Because some people, even if they're not on respiratory care when they walk in or strolled in, unfortunately, a lot of people, they're on your back. You know, they're not maybe getting out too much or getting up too much, you know, and then it's like people that have pneumonia. How many times, no matter what else is going on, the inability to breathe, and those places don't have, you know, pulmonary specialists, and they have to be brought in from the outside. So it's out.
The assisted living cost, that's monthly also? Yeah.
Yes, everything here is much except for the
Okay.
bar. And assisted living, there's a range, because you've got some places give you more assistance, from dining halls to, you know, doorbell, you know, all the activities and things going on, to some are pretty basic. You know, there is no big food halls or whatever.
And there's add-ons too with that.
But yeah, and
Correct, that's what I was just gonna say, the more you want, the more you're gonna have to pay. So that's why we put all these like numbers between 3 and 7. It could still go above that for assisted living, we're hearing pending. Because if you need more care or have somebody come to help you do whatever it may be, so you're gonna pay more.
like some places have entire complexes, like anybody here, Gaylord, Wallingford.
Yes, yes.
Masonic.
Beautiful
So
facility.
you got a whole
state-of-the-art.
stretch of different things there, from just the basic short-term care to the skilled nursing to the long-term care scenario. So they can bounce you from one. And the problem is, again, I don't want to get too sidetracked. Some of these assisted living facilities that have, you've got to pay a big lump sum to even get in,
They want a down.
and then pay a monthly fee. They're not Medicaid facilities. So some people run out of assets. You know, they get put in there by the kids, life is good, but all of a sudden all right, we need the next check for 10,000. And the bank account shows 3.
And what happens?
They're not Medicaid facilities. They can't even apply for Title 19. They gotta get
Move
moved.
someone.
So a lot of times people don't, because they want to put mom or dad or whoever in the nice facility. Then all of a sudden, you know, the cupboard's bare, you know, then they got to get moved to a Title 19 facility. Yes, ma'am.
So what is memory care facility?
Similar, again, 90% of Alzheimer, senility, dementia patients are cared for by family members. It's the biggest unfortunate growing until they can't handle that. Then, you know, these facilities, they're just,
And there's actually documentaries out there about, which we saw, the granny dumping. It's big down south, won't say which state, but yes, they get overwhelmed and they dump them in the emergency room, and which is the saddest thing but it is true. Who ends up taking care of a loved one? It's the family more than that.
and then
And finally,
the home health. Again, people aren't driving around looking for the nursing home facility on the weekends. You know, if they need care, they'd rather stay in their own home and have somebody come there. But sometimes, like my mom, I'll give it, you know, a year and a half ago, you know, very active her whole life, adult diabetic, finally went on oxygen, but was still mobile. And then we would have the visiting, you know, nurse or whatever. But then she started having a couple extra falls. So finally had to make, you know, the transition. But 4 days after her 101st birthday, she passed. So it was quite a run. So,
and she
But-
had her brains and marbles and everything to the very end.
but think about this, and I want to, you mentioned about what happens if you go into she was a widow, you go into a facility and you come out. Well, she did it twice.
Wow.
In fact, the first time they offered her a job because she was a former head of nursing and.
Oh,
But she was very smart, and always, and even where she lived, she would help out in her community, and so, which was nice. And that's the biggest thing, which I'm also saying, stay active, keep your heart pumping and your brain moving. You know, whether doing yoga, find something you enjoy, whatever age you are. So, ready to go to the next one? So, short-term care insurance. So sometimes not everything is long-term care. Sometimes you just had a bad break and you need some extra care. Bad break in the leg, whatever it may be.
A lot of times it's with certain things, it's about hedging your bets. So the chances that somebody's going to need short-term care is probably greater than somebody needing long-term. that, like you said, the bad break that ends up being worse than you thought, just something that goes on. So you need assistance for, more than just that first month. Then there are plans out there that just give you, coverage for up to a year, which obviously are going to be less expensive than a longer term care type. Just a nice little tool to have in the toolbox, or at least, as an option to have, because, they're more priced, to be affordable for people to cover that emergency. Single plans, spousal plans, all kinds of variations. It's becoming a bigger growing field too.
Our silence.
So again, it's cheaper than your traditional long-term care because it covers a shorter window of time. Basically, when you purchase, you select how much coverage you want to get. You can get some flexibility there. Most of the plans, there's minimal medical underwriting, different than the long-term care. We may ask you a few yes or no questions, and you can apply even at older ages. So where some plans, the typical long-term care, you don't want to wait till you're 80 to apply. If you're going to apply, do it sooner than later. Shorter term care, you can apply at later ages. Again, pay a little bit more if you're applying at 65 versus applying at age 80, but it's still available to you.
So what is traditional long-term care? And we're going to tell you the ins and outs and everything in between.
So regular, or what we call traditional long-term care, came out in the mid 80s. There's probably 70 or 80 insurance companies that offered traditional long-term care. And again, it was designed to cover all those, folks that couldn't perform some activities of daily living. It was priced right. It was, you could put it into the budget if you so desired. Again, it was designed for whether the person needed care. Hello.
No, I need to.
That's okay. So whether somebody needs care at a facility, whether they want to stay at home, they were designed to give you that flexibility. Including adult daycare, including respite services, hospice care. And with all these plans, you can pick the window of time for how long you want to have coverage. You can pick the window of time for when you want coverage to kick in. So yeah, so what are your exposures with, shall we say, the downside to long-term care?
The traditional kind. 'Cause I promise we're going to get to the better. We're not going to end on a negative note. I promise you that. We do not believe it ending on the sad side, but yes, there is the traditional side. You're going to pay it no matter what. And
so number one was when you took out a policy, when the first plans came out in the 80s to the turn of the century, you bought a plan and that was it. You're going to pay that premium. And obviously if you did it sooner than later, it was going to be less expensive. But right around the turn of the century, all the baby boomers started having claims.
so who didn't calculate
And
correctly?
these lovely actuaries didn't quite plan for it. So companies had built into their provisions the ability to raise premiums for even their existing policyholders. So imagine you're spending $3,000 a year or whatever the premium was, they can say, we're going to increase it by 25%. Then maybe another 25% the following year. So it became, almost cost prohibitive for some folks based on their situation. Number two, the amount of care you could get, the 13,000 to 15,000, depending how much you were getting, obviously your costs are going to be higher for it. Again, you've got to deal within the traditional suite of services as far as needing activity, not being able to perform those activities of daily living. But the big one was underwriting, how they look at you medically, because determined long-term care is not mortality, whether you're going to live or die, it's morbidity, the likelihood that you might need some kind of long-term care. So underwriters look at long-term care insurance applications different than they look at life insurance. Because life insurance, is there something that you have or could have that could make you live or die? Whereas with long-term care, they're looking at what's the likelihood you could get something that's going to, debilitate you, so you've got to be in a facility. So they look at things a little bit differently.
Before we get into that, we're gonna go.
All right, so this is what I was trying to get to initially is once you can't perform two or more of those activities of daily living, then depending on how you built your plan or your policy, number one, how long do you want to be on care before the policy is going to start kicking in? So majority of people who do traditional long-term care, they're going to wait 90 days.
Because most of the people are on Medicare, so as long, if you're on Medicare,
You're getting something depending what you're doing, but also the shorter the elimination period, the more the cost is going to be. Because if they're going to start covering you after day 30 versus day 90, because after day 90, you're going to be there a while. But it's potential after only 30 days or 60 days, you could be on with it. So number one, most people do the 90-day elimination. Next thing is how long are they going to give you coverage? So all these companies, you can pick a number of years. I want coverage for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or you can pick a plan that says unlimited. So speaking of that, most medical reasons that people are in a nursing home, non-mental, the average length of stay is still about 3 years or less. But Alzheimer's,
and dementia.
start with Alzheimer's, from start to finish, do you know how long the average length is?
Any guesses in this room if you had to?
7 years.
It's 8.5 years. Yeah, and some people don't make it the full 8.5 and some live longer. But it's like, I always related to, it's like somebody who goes and has too many adult beverages. You have happy drunks and you've got mean drunks. Well, it's no different with Alzheimer's. You got people that are happy, they're just kind of, they don't know what planet they're on, they don't know what time it is, it's going to rain or not. And there's people that are mean. And obviously, they don't know their own strength. So it can be a tough one. So somebody needs care because of that, it can definitely wipe out best laid plans for the survivor.
So the benefit years, technically speaking, the person dies.
So we're going to get into,
I just,
I promise we're not gonna end on a negative.
Okay.
so if somebody dies and they were on coverage, they're going to get coverage for as long as they're alive. But if they die before the window of their coverage window is, then the policy ends. But vice versa, what if they had a 3-year long-term care plan and they were 5 years in the nursing home? That meant the last 5 years, the last 2 years out of that 5, they're paying away. And by the way, the goal with traditional long-term care was not to get dollar for dollar coverage. It was to cover enough so that, yeah, I don't mind having some skin in the game, but I don't want to be spending, $10,000 or $15,000 a month out of my own pocket. I don't mind spending a couple thousand or whatever it is. So getting enough coverage so that,
Gives you that peace of mind when you go to bed at night, maybe you only, if your bill is what, $500 a day, and you cover 200 of it, so you're not, so it's stopping.
it's like, say you're collecting Social Security. Well, if I go in, they can take my Social Security of $2,500, $3,000 a month, whatever it might be. Or again, for the person, it's going to get care again, but not the survivor. And again, the benefit amounts, it's typically, whether you look at it as a per day benefit of 50 to 500 or, 1,500 to 15,000 a month. That's how you design the plans. And for some people, traditional long-term care is still out there. It could make sense, but
There's less than a handful.
there's only about a handful of companies left offering it. It's an industry or a product that's been in trouble. So
Let's get to the other side. So now we're gonna get into the other side of the fence, the types of hybrid policies. And these are the 3 most popular that are available right now.
So some of these have been around for a little bit, but it really haven't really started taking off the last, 4 or 5 years, are the hybrid. And the most popular or most common is what's called a life insurance / long-term care policy. And we'll break down And then some, it's life insurance that has a long-term care rider. And some, it's life insurance that has that critical or chronic illness rider. So even with traditional long-term care, where most people are paying a monthly annual premium, you did have the option of either doing a lump sum or a 10 pay. But with these plans, it's a little bit different. Because, and again, whether you still want to pay single, whether you want to pay where I get all my money back. One of the most common ones is where money is taken, for somebody has the ability, to put in a lump sum of money, 100,000, 200, whatever that might be, where money's going to come out of that new account, and every year it's going to fund the life insurance / long-term care. So what does that mean? And then one of the things that changed was 3 years ago, the government allowed people to take money from an IRA or 401k for a married couple, fund both spouses' long-term care plan. And so, again, the way it works is money comes out, and every year you have a life insurance policy. So if somebody dies, it's going to pay. Somebody has the inability to perform the activities of daily living to them, it's going to pay. But eventually, what happens if you don't? Because one of the problems with traditional long-term care, and we hear it, what if I never have a claim?
It's like home and auto. You need to have it, but if you never use it, it's like same kind of thing.
So, but with long-term care, well, what if I don't use it? Well, because auto and homeowners are required by law, whereas traditional isn't. So the problem with traditional was, yeah, if you had a claim, they paid it. But if you didn't have a claim or you died, that was it. It disappeared. So with these, it's on the next slide. So number one,
How are the benefits paid?
how are the benefits? And this is something different. So traditional long-term care, basically, if they're spending 11,000 a month on you, that's what you're going to be paid. That's the reimbursement. But what if your plan is paying 15,000 a month? And even though your benefit is 11,000, they're going to pay the full 15 and let you use the difference for 4,000 for the survivor to use any which way they want. So one of the big differences is underwriting. The way they look at people medically is different on this side than the traditional side. Every year, it seems like traditional long-term care, the medical underwriting gets worse and worse, more rigorous. Obviously, a premium 20 years ago for a 60-year-old for $500 a day versus a 60-year-old today for $500, it's tripled. It's just going up dramatically. So these hybrid plans just have less underwriting, less medical underwriting. So depending on what your situation is, they may only ask a few questions. And as we're finding, even if somebody had a heart condition, a heart event, they had cancer, depending when they had it, how long they've been out of remission or recovery, normally would be a death knell. You would never be able to qualify. With these plans, you can. Again, because there's more lenient underwriting, it's easier to qualify. Again, that folks that may have had some more difficult medical things going on that you wouldn't qualify on the traditional side, you're going to be eligible on this side. And again, the fact that you can kind of put everything into one umbrella, that if the long-term care scenario arrives, you're going to get the benefit. And then if something that long-term care doesn't, but the plow truck in Monroe comes along to something else, it's going to pay out that death benefit to whoever your beneficiaries are. And again, one person's potentially IRA 401k can fund a spousal, for husband and wife care. So always like to end on a good note. So the big thing on what's changed the industry with these hybrid long-term care plans is for the first time, we could say win-win-win. Because yes, if you have a claim, it's going to pay the claim. But somebody dies before they can file a claim,
It will pay.
it's going to pay. And at some point, if somebody decides they want to walk away, it's just not.
They never used it, they get it
Some
back.
portion of their money back. So for the biggest issue we always hear about the traditional long-term care, if we never have a claim, I'm never going to get my money back. Technically you could, but you would have to pay, because even traditional long-term care has what are called non-forfeiture provisions. So say your premium was supposed to be $3,000 a year, but if you didn't have a claim, poof, that money went away. So they can say you can get a non-forfeiture provision by, instead of paying $3,000, you're going to pay $5,000, but if you don't have a claim, we'll give you your money back, but you've paid that extra $2,000 a year or whatever the number is, which again could make it price prohibitive. So this doesn't have, it's all kind of built into the soup, so to speak, that depending on what somebody's situation is, it's a nice tool. And the fact that because of that law change, we're seeing a change. Because unfortunately, as you have to be 65, typically the work clock is kind of grinding down. And so the other thing is, let's say with that IRA 401k money, you've got to start taking those required minimum distributions. That money comes out of there is going to count towards that distribution. So again, depending on what else people have for assets, it could be a beautiful thing. So again, we mentioned this earlier, we put together this lovely little long-term care planning guide. If anybody's interested, just point your little smartphone at it.
It will bring you to our website. You just have to put your email and name and we'll send you the link, but it is a great guide that we put together, especially when we are on Zoom or not in person, but if we are in person, because we try to become technology savvy. So, but bring it up for a second and.
Did you say there was a law that not too long ago came into being that allowed these hybrid long-term care policies?
What changed was the ability to use pre-tax money. Before it was only after-tax money you had sitting in the savings account or maybe invested. You could take some of that money in an after-tax account and fund it. But then 3 years plus, they passed a law that allowed pre-tax money to be able to be put in here. So how we're seeing people use it is people are taking a portion of that IRA or 401k as a lump sum, and whether it's a single person,
Married couple.
or a married couple, because we're seeing more and more with married couples, because they're using one person, because they say one person's the breadwinner. They've got whatever number of dollars in that IRA or 401k. They're taking a portion of it, not all of it, just a portion of it to hedge their bets with the long-term care and thus covering both sides. Because remember, everybody's a pet, because a lot of times, one spouse was the breadwinner. There's a lot of their assets are more under one spouse than the other. But the nursing home comes knocking, they don't care who was the breadwinner. They just want those assets to pay the way. So this allows
The leverage.
a leverage to basically prepare in advance. We've talked in the beginning about that Medicaid annuity. That's when somebody's already in the facility, the clock has struck midnight, they have no choice. They've got to figure out a way to try to scrape by and protect assets. This allows people to do it in advance, kind of controlling your own destiny.
So let's do what do we call ourselves as comprehensive retirement planning specialists? One, we're the number one Medicare planning firm in Connecticut. We're licensed with every company that you see advertised on TV. Plus, we also do for the under 65 health insurance, which is also Access Health for people that can't get group coverage through work.
And above and beyond, we just talked about this class. How do you protect assets that you work so hard for? In case the long-term care, it's like I always tell people in retirement planning, wasn't long ago that it was a 10 or 15 year proposition. From the time you retired to the time people passed was 10 or 15 years. And like in a blink of an eye, Retirement planning has gone from 10 to 15 years to 30 to 40 years. And how many people are retiring at 60 to 65 and living well into their 90s to 100? And that number is going to keep stretching. Quality of life may not be so good, but people are going to be living longer and longer. So again, how do you make sure those assets are going to be there? Then, on the retirement planning side of things, how do you make sure your assets are going to generate the income you need for the rest of your life? Because for most people, the only fixed income they have is Social Security. Every year, less and less people are having fixed pensions. So their income has to come from their assets. And the majority of people we see don't know what their assets can generate as far as income, or are they positioned to even generate income? If all your IRAs and 401ks are still in the stock market, and then the stock market does one of these, which it does every once in a while. Do you want to sell low when you have to take that distribution or you need the income? So positioning of assets so that some portion of it is going to be there for you to drive that income. And then, do people our age still need life insurance? And for some, the answer is no, life is good. But if there's still debt, or if somebody's still working, and if they were, be hit by that stinking Monroe plow truck, with their income being missed. And then finally, there's so many different laws and programs, for people over 50 that either people don't know about, or if they've heard about them, they don't think they qualify. I'll give you two quick examples besides what we talked about here. Has anybody ever taken care of an elder parent or friend, maybe not in the best of health, not in the best of finances? The state of Connecticut, through a program called Community First Choice, will pay you over $25,000 a year to take care of that person. Greatly underutilized program. For people on Medicare, there's something called the Medicare Savings Program. Again, it's a federal program, but each state has their own guidelines. If somebody qualifies, your Medicare Part B premium, the $174 and change, that'll go away. Your prescription drug copays will go away. If you qualify at the top level, all your Medicare deductibles and copays go away. Now, most states look at income and assets. The state of Connecticut is one of the few that only looks at income. And it doesn't even look at all income. So, for a married couple making roughly $4,000 or less a month, single making $3,000 or less a month, they're going to qualify for some level of benefit. Now, the state of Connecticut knows everybody's income. They also know that roughly half the people that are eligible for this program are on it. Why aren't the other half on it? They don't know about it. Or maybe they've heard about it, but they don't think they qualify. So again, I don't work for the state, I'm not an attorney, but we try to help people become aware of these things.
What was the first one? Community
First choice,
First Choice.
which is under the Department of Social Services, DSS.
Community First Choice.
Yes.
So it allows up to 25,000 a year.
You're going to have multiple caregivers. It's designed not for the licensed caregiver. It's really designed for family and
Yeah.
friends. And they actually create a budget. So whoever needs care, you're going to have somebody come over and do an evaluation. If they qualify, they create a budget. Maybe it's 75,000, which maybe says two people each can get 25,000, in that range. And maybe 25,000 can be used to retrofit the bathroom or put a ramp in or do, whatever, they qualify for. Then it just continues. So it's designed not for that licensed, caregiver. Because if you don't take care of the person who is, they're gonna have to go to the nursing home. It's gonna cost the state a lot more money.
And what was the name of the second program that you just mentioned?
The Medicare Savings Program.
And that is a paper application. So please, even if you think you qualify or on the border, just submit it. Somebody's actually looking over the application for the Medicare Savings Program, and they will give you a check mark if you qualify, and it can be a great assistance for, and as we know right now, 50% of people in the state of Connecticut are eligible for it that aren't on it. So We're gonna do our little
We're
infomercial.
gonna stay around to answer any and all questions.
Okay, this is your headquarters, your office?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So we're Pelletier Senior Planning is a subset of American Senior Benefits, which is a nationwide organization. So right off the bat, we have offices in not all 50 states, but in a lot of them. So if somebody does want to move or want to know about laws in a different state, we're tied in across the country. Secondly, like I said, we've been teaching classes on this for a long time. So what we try to provide for all the folks who attend our classes at no cost or obligation to you is a chance to review your own situation, whether it's on the Medicare side, financial planning side, long-term care planning side. End of the day, how do Lou and Jessica earn our keep? If we help somebody on the Medicare side, insurance side, financial side, you don't pay us, we get paid by whoever that financial institution is. But sometimes the best advice is get your will updated, get that power of attorney, apply for that Medicare savings program. Yeah, we're not attorneys, we don't get paid that way. But the hope is at the end of the day, if you felt we've educated you, made you aware of things that nobody else is making you aware of, then we're just kind of happy, kind of like the way we did things, that hopefully you'd be happy to pass our name on to other folks, whether they come to future classes that we have here or across the state, or just, give us the old call or whatever. It's allows us to keep offering these classes at no cost.
And where's our other office located?
Yes,
This is our main office, but we do have
in
another office.
Connecticut, we're also in Shelton, is our
We're in Shelton.
research.
Because we're right next to Shelton.
I know research, but we also come out, we're all over. So whether people meet us in our office or we meet people in their home or library, we've done that over the years.
So yes, did everyone enjoy this class that my father and I put together? Did it really help
Yes.
enlighten you?
You guys ready for the final exam?
Like, go get it. No, but yes, we really knew, we put this together because we know what are your options? And so I hope you learned something today. Tell the library that you enjoyed this class because we love that when people give feedback, and so we hope it will come back. And we do have one more class coming here. I think we have our Medicare class. Find out if there's.
So by the way, at Pelletier Senior Planning, we list all our classes. So it'll say where are the long-term care classes, where are the Medicare classes, where are the retirement.
I'm pretty sure. What is it? Yeah, I know we have one more class here. But I'm 99% sure it's our Medicare class.
So like this week, tomorrow we'll be in Hamden, will be the Medicare class. We'll be in New Fairfield for the retirement class. We're doing all three classes.
Yes. So we like to stay busy and educating.
Stanford, Westport,
So does anybody have any questions?
Woodbury, North Branford. Monroe, May 8th is the Medicare class at 5 o'clock.
Anybody that's in this class, I would love to learn about
And in any
Medicare.
event, there might be another class, but our class is by far the best. Yeah, all over. We teach classes in the Darien Library, May 23rd. Southbury Library. We're all over the place.
What's the trend with Medicare Advantage plans?
Holly,
So first, it was a godsend because it gave people extra benefits that they weren't getting on the traditional side. And they can have a plan that didn't have a premium. Medicare supplement, you're paying a premium. And then you weren't getting the dental, the vision, and the other. But you had to play within the rules of Medicare Advantage. You had to find doctors in a network. You kind of had to play. And I always tell people, when Medicare Advantage works, it's the greatest thing. This is when it becomes the Medicare disadvantage is when maybe a claim gets denied or there's issues and so forth. So one of the benefits that we have is a couple. We obviously we're your first line of defense. So if there's an issue, we have people, call the customer service and say, look, at my claim, something happened. And then it allows us to then get involved. Because we all, with every company, every Medicare Advantage insurance company, we have a direct rep with them. Then our ace in the hole is the Attorney General for health insurance is an old friend. So I don't abuse that friendship, but at times he's been an ace in the hole because the other side, is and it was Medicare. If you have a supplement plan and Medicare, doesn't want to cover a claim, you're dealing with the government. It's not easy.
Which we just had a case, the gentleman was in Florida, had a cardiac event. He had to go to hospital A. Hospital A wasn't equipped for what he needed. They transferred him to hospital B, but guess what? What happened?
They didn't think it was medically necessary for him.
Emergency.
Now, so I've learned, and I've had less issues on obviously the Medicare side than Advantage, but fighting Medicare, and I know what I've been doing this a long time, so so what you'll hear, like doctors all want people to go on Medicare with a supplement, because that means they're only billing directly with Medicare, and then they know you have a supplement, whatever plan you. Whereas with Advantages, there's how many different companies now offering Advantage plans. And you've got to, they got to have a different, process with each company for how to submit the claims and so forth, which is why a lot of doctors don't get, to participate with every company.
Which also I'm gonna say, being in Connecticut, you are not stuck. So say which in other states you could be, you might have to pick a path from the get-go. But yes, you start on, like, say, the Advantage side. For a few years, she's relatively healthy, only going once or twice to the doctor here, but like some of those extra benefits. And then also you see some health things coming up and you want to decide to go the other side of the fence, you can't. There's no medical underwriting.
And even like myself, okay, I broke a leg here, and I had an ambulance ride, and I had a same day copay for the surgery, and that was it. So it was still less expensive for me to be on the Advantage plan than the supplement. But then where I thought things would have changed, my wife decided a year ago to one-up me on my broken leg by having a heart attack on March 1st of last year, the old widowmaker. And so she fortunately went to Harvard Hospital to put the stent in, but she was in cardiac ICU for X number of days, went to the step-down unit. So her bill was well over $100,000. Do you know what our bill was?
We got the bills in the mail. I'm like, Dad, what's going on? We're not on the hook. But no, what was our bill?
It was 4 days times 450, our copay for the first 4 days, $1,800. And it was $300 for her ambulance ride. So her $150,000, stay at Hartford Hospital, our bill was $2,100.
And that was under what?
That was under an Advantage plan.
Yeah.
I won't mention the company
Yeah.
because it's an educational.
Sure.
But I thought, given that once you've had a heart attack, sometimes unfortunately you may have other heart or other issues. So I thought for sure 2024.
We were going to go to the other side of the
We're going to go on a supplement and get a standalone drug plan. But so we know with the supplement, you're going to have a cost for whatever plan so the best plan available to her would have been G, which is $250 a month, $3,000 a year. But then we have to get a drug plan. So on the Advantage side, let's say, and she takes, unfortunately, a lot of name brand drugs.
stuff you see on TV.
But her copay for her drugs was going to be like $2,500 for the year
Under which plan?
under her Advantage plan. The cheapest standalone drug plan was over $5,000
So if you just do basic math,
I mean, with the supplement.
with the supplement. So would have been paying that $250 a month
no matter what,
for the supplement, and we would have been paying for that drug plan. And because of her drugs, it's a higher premium, plus with the copays,
Yeah.
it's going to be another $5,000.
So still, the Advantage plan would
For
have
her
been in her
work.
best interest, even after having a heart attack.
Correct.
and that's why you risk it, and that's one
why
thing you need to evaluate every year, which is for anybody that's on Medicare, which is open annual enrollment, open enrollment. Some people call it a few different things, October 15th through December 7th. Just review, make sure you are in the right plan, that you're getting the best benefits based for your situation, because that's why there are so many options.
And I tell people, end of the day, if money's no object and you just want the freedom, do the supplement. I have no problems with that. But I was thinking my couple down in Greenwich in the $10 million home, that's on an Advantage plan. It's maybe one of the reasons they're in the $10 million home. But some people have no choice, and they really would prefer to be on the Advantage financially, but they need that, a couple where woman's, in cancer remission, but she has to go up to Dana-Farber up in in Massachusetts. She has no choice. She has to be on the supplement. So again, the other thing is most states do medical underwriting for supplements. But in New Jersey, you go to most states, they're gonna look, are you 65, 75, smoker, non-smoker, blah, blah, blah. And they have different premiums. Well, Connecticut, whether you're 65 or 95, you know, if the cheapest G is 250, everybody can get it for 250. There's no medical underwriting, but most states do.
There are
So,
only 5 states, I think, that don't do the medical underwriting.
and 3 are right here, Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts.
That's why be careful when you read the national book for the Medicare and you that you.
In fact, you're gonna,
Because it gets people more times confused because it covers all the states. They should only send a quarter of the size just for the state of Connecticut and they would save paper.
so if you're gonna move from Connecticut to another state, you can keep your Connecticut supplement. But vice versa, I've had people move from Massachusetts to Connecticut and they're keeping their supplement they got in Massachusetts because it's cheaper. Such a deal, as they say in West Hartford. So,
Yeah.
you know, again, you need to do the homework, have somebody that knows.
Or come to our Medicare class and you'll learn everything else you want to know.
So a couple questions, with Medicare Advantage, all Medicare Advantage plans include the Part D drug coverage.
Yeah, so
Most, if not all.
So say somebody was in the VA and they have coverage through the VA, then they can get an Advantage plan that doesn't include drugs, but why not?
I see.
It could be both options because maybe that Advantage, that VA might be the better way to go drug wise, but sometimes there might be a drug or two. You're still better off getting through the Medicare Advantage. So why just get a Medicare Advantage which is an MA versus an MAPD, Medicare Advantage prescription drug. So again, that's where experience and knowledge kind of helps you figure.
And if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you can flip at certain times of the year to a standard Medicare and you can get the Medicare supplement.
Correct. So you have 2 windows. You have what's called the annual open enrollment, October 15th through December 7th. You can switch whatever plan anyway, but then first 3 months of the year that just passed is the Medicare Advantage open enrollment. Gives you one more, you get out of jail free card, one more shot where you can go from one Advantage to another Advantage or go from an Advantage to a supplement.
That's why I always say when you're on Medicare, you're never stuck.
Especially here.
Usually there's always some type of enrollment period. Yes, you might have to wait a few months, but there's always usually a window that you change.
I just want to throw in something. My sister had narrow angle glaucoma. And looking at doctors, and she was going to an optician. I kept on saying, why aren't you going to an ophthalmologist? Why aren't you? going to
A real, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And so she says, well, they're just telling me to go here. And I said, okay, and she's on the Advantage. And she was working at Yale. She was working at Yale. And so then, and she'd already gone through, 3 Yale, doctors, and then she had the optician. And then finally, her vision was getting worse. And I said, well, let's look for a doctor. So we found a doctor. She liked the doctor. She went to the doctor, just for,
Right, ophthalmologist.
an ophthalmologist, just for, just to talk to him and stuff like that. And then she decided to go, and he had a lot of glaucoma experience, patient wise,
You're
right?
the expert.
But she's on Advantage. She can't go to him. So then she wound
Why
up
can't she?
waiting.
Yeah.
Well,
The network.
because he wasn't in the network.
So
So then what she had to do
That
was
was him.
just try, had to wait, and then she switched to, to Medicare, the supplemental. But I mean,
That's
I'm
why-
just saying, it's one of those catchy things that you don't know.
But then,
until
so
you're up
it's
against
just
it.
like prescription drugs. Nope. With so many now name brand drugs, very few plans, whether it's standalone drug plans or Medicare Advantage drug plans, you might find 1 or 2 plans that cover certain drugs,
Right,
but they have to cover all the drug categories. But when it comes to doctors, and I've been doing this a long time, rarely is there a specialist that you can't find enough other. And I'll give you my example because you just mentioned glaucoma. So I live right next to UConn. So my primary is still there, and I was going there for years for eye care. And so the original guy was kind of retired, but there's a big group there. So they felt that I was getting glaucoma and they were kind of watching it. So believe it or not, UConn has no glaucoma specialist within their entire,
And we're not kidding, this is
I'm not
the
making
true
this-
story. So, yeah,
100%.
so literally we had to change.
so I was looking around and my oldest daughter teaches figure skating. She goes, one of her students' fathers was like Harvard, blah, blah, blah. That's his
Yeah.
specialty. And I went
So we went to
to
him.
see him and he's in the network, you know, there's a ton. So and sometimes it's like people talking at the beauty parlor, I heard this, you know, and there might be some truth to it, but sometimes you just peel away more times than not, when people make a statement about something, it's not quite true, or it's not true at all. Because, you know, it's like, I hear these things all the time. It's like,
That's where rumors have it, rumors spread like wildfire, because that's ultimately, and I will say with the Medicare Advantage side, there are some companies that maybe have smaller networks, because maybe they're newer to Connecticut. Well, then don't go with a company like that. That's what we're going through something like
So I'll
me
give
or
you
my father.
so here's
Some of these companies have big networks.
So for example, I teach at Stanford Hospital just for the employees, and there for years. So there's always been this stupid rumor floating around
Oh, it's
that when you turn 65, even if you're still working there, you still have to sign up for Medicare.
You have to go on Medicare, otherwise you'll get penalized. It's a rumor that's flying. We've been teaching educational classes there
And I've-
for years.
so we've come across, but then last year was kind of one that just,
Really
so I had
stayed
a
with us.
set of appointments in, you know, at the hospital, different areas. The last appointment was a woman that's a nurse there. You know, and we go into her office and she goes, would you mind if my husband's there? I said, sure. And then, you know, he's casually dressed.
We had no clue what he did. He was
She
just,
goes, oh, by the way, he works here too. I'm thinking, does he sweep floors? No. He's a doctor. And 2 years ago, when he turned 65, he signed up for Medicare and the Part B.
because everyone
and
was
because
telling
he-
him to sign up because he would get
And
penalized.
because of his income, he was hitting IRMA, the income
Oh,
related
yeah.
monthly adjustment. So instead of paying the 174 or whatever, he was
Paying a
paying
lot more.
$500 a month for nothing for 2 years.
He could have gone on a
Lost
nice
it.
trip with us.
for private insurance?
No,
For
for
Medicare.
Medicare,
Your
just
Part B.
Medicare
Oh.
is Part B and Part D. If your income as a married couple's above 206,000,
So,
they're gonna whack, and they're looking at your income from 2 years ago. So
There is that law that you will get penalized if you don't at least enroll. You don't have to take it.
as long as you're covered by a Medicare viable plan, you
plan.
work till age 80 and not.
When you say Medicare viable, you mean like a private insurance, like working for a hospital,
Or anybody.
their insurance.
And if you're not sure, reach out to the HR department. But
So as long as you're covered by that and you.
Or you're on your spouse's cover.
Right, as long as you're covered, but you still need to at least enroll.
No,
I didn't.
no.
you do not.
In
that's
fact,
the rumor.
here's why, again, that rumor's.
Flying
You're asking
around
good questions. So what if you're contributing to a health savings account? Some people are.
HSA.
You're not allowed to sign up for Part A.
That's.
I got dinged on that when I went to retire.
See, because
When I went to sign up for Part B, they're like, you're not in an HSA. I'm like, yeah, I have been. And they're like, can't do that. So I reversed my HSA contribution.
even though they don't always catch people, but the point is, the letter of the law says 6 months before you sign up for Part A, you're supposed to stop contributing to an HSA.
Okay.
Well, but then how many people that were planning to work till age 70, and then all of a sudden they say, no, I don't feel like working anymore. Or the company says, thanks for the memories, we don't need you anymore. And they're going on Medicare immediately. So there's no 6 month off period. But the bottom line is, unless you know you're not contributing to an HSA, or you just want to get to A to get into the system, that's your option.
And I'll throw one more thing out about Cobra.
Yeah, so
Do not go on Cobra, otherwise you'll be
if
penalized.
you are 65 or older, COBRA does not count as Medicare viable coverage. So, and then here's the last one. If somebody starts collecting Social Security before they turn 65, Medicare thinks you want to be on Medicare at 65, so they automatically sign you up. So you literally, if you don't want it, you've got to opt out of it. You know, and again.
But you can see we're so passionate about what we do because this
I
is
just
all we
hear so
do.
many stuff that's, and again, I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but I've been
You've
doing
been doing this, you've been doing.
They,
And
that's why people are so frustrated, is
They don't make it user.
look at the under 65. Access Health. Thankfully, Jessica deals with that for, but
Which is, and that
their
it can be
system,
more
the state,
complicated.
every state has a different system and everything else. The plans are horrendous because of the way they they create them, and there's only two companies left. We can't, again, won't mention Connecticut or Anthem. But the way
That's
they
for
do
the
the
under
plans and
65.
percentages and all that, it's like, you gotta have a PhD in mathematics to figure out mathematically what's the best plan to take. You know, and I've
But the
been doing,
plans make less sense.
and I'm a math guy. I've been,
And I'm like, and I'm literally going through it and showing my father, because ultimately they should be opening the borders and getting more plans and competition. But now it's like I've been running quotes. And do you know what the average monthly premium, since we're going down that road, is a month? And it's not including deductibles, copays in the state of Connecticut.
300 something, this,
Way higher. than
the
that.
monthly premium for
$1,000.
access health,
$1,000.
Average a month.
$1,000?
Unless you get so the benefit of Access Health, the only benefit is that when you apply through Access Health versus going directly to those two companies, they look at your income.
Okay, oh, yes,
So you can get a tax credit.
I see, yeah.
But you've got to be, so if you're working for XYZ company but typically people going on Access Health are self-employed.
Okay.
You know, and they may not, here's that, my income last year was this, but I don't know what it's going to be this year. I'm self-employed. It could be up, it could be down. So you're making a guess. And the problem is if you guessed low, you've got to make an adjustment.
But now that, because which has been a positive for me becoming a broker, because they just opened it up for people to become brokers and help out. And the thing is, which is kind of correct, but now let's say you put your income as 50,000 and all of a sudden you make 100,000, you can go in and correct it. And that's what I would recommend anybody doing. So, because it's at the end, when you're doing your taxes, which I've been learning too, they have all your calculations and numbers, which you've just heard. It's pretty cool, the software, because the tax
It's
guy
finally
knows, oh,
connected.
you owe so-and-so, and that's why you want to go.
It wasn't connected before. It's finally connecting the IRS to the tax credit. So it's been, and their software still stinks here in Connecticut. But compared to most states, I mean, other states have actually bought the state of Connecticut software system to do
They
for
rush
access.
to get it out there. There's things that could be more user-friendly. So if anybody that's going on Access Health, I say, well, there's a few ways you can, and I'll just say, you can go online, try to start an account, at least you're getting an online account going. But then there's gonna ask you a ton of questions. That's where I say just call and get somebody that's an expert in creating those accounts. And that's what they get paid to do. And then once you get to the insurance side, that's where I can come in. Because I can't give you any advice on the insurance through Access. So I know we've covered everything now. Anything else?
Yes. Earlier, I'm trying to remember. You know,
Or here, more candy.
where do we get the candy? No.
Right here.
No, but earlier you said you fought for people with their, I think even Medicare plans or their Medicare Advantage plans to get the coverage that was denied by them. But how do you get involved in that? Is that if someone,
So what happens? The companies it gets.
They all have different ways.
Pretty much now is the consumer has to file the first complaint. So look, I went to get my cataracts done and I was told it was gonna be this, and they charged me this. So they have to file the first, appeal.
And see if you can resolve it
the
first.
insurance
The insurance, whoever your supplement
Medicare
plan,
Advantage or,
whoever it might be.
Yeah.
And then, once that happens, we can then get involved and we do what's called, we can escalate it. We can, raise it up
well, so if I didn't know you ahead of time or something, and then I had this problem, and then somebody said, oh, call, call
Actually,
Lou or
we'd have to be your broker of record.
so I mean, you have to sign up.
So if you're already on an advantage or supplement with Joe Schmo, we'd have to become your broker of record to be able to speak, just like a lawyer, to speak on your behalf.
Yeah.
How do you become the broker of record?
They have to sign you up for the health.
They call them agent of records.
So just at that open enrollment time?
Correct, or before, but companies are making it more.
Whenever you sign up for Medicare, whether you're leaving group coverage, that's where the benefit.
No, but if somebody's already on a plan with some other
XYZ person.
individual,
I mean,
depending who you're with, will determine how it.
Some people just sign up on their own. I mean,
Correct, they go directly online or they
Right.
call the company and.
But ultimately, then you don't
They
have.
called
that.
Joe Namath's commercial, that Joe Namath commercial, they thought he was the best thing going.
And then that's another thing I'm gonna throw out, what you were just saying. Please don't answer the phone. I actually just talked to a lady today. got scammed by CVS. She thought it was, somebody was calling her saying they were a CVS representative and trying to get their Medicare card information. Please do not answer the phone because there's a lot of scammers out there. You can be talking to somebody in a basement in Texas. All of a sudden, before you know it, you're signed up for a crappy plan with a crappy network, no benefits. And this is why we're such, like I said, it frustrates me, which is why going through something like this, because we're your advocate. If something happens, and like you're saying, you have to call customer service. You might be dealing with the Philippines, India, Malaysia, wherever you pick your.
The Joe Namath commercials, unfortunately, changed the industry. Because there used to be, if somebody wanted to sign up for a supplement or advantage, it was a cooling off. So if we met with you, we had to wait at least 48 hours before we could sign. And the Joe Namath and a lot of changed it to instantaneous because they're not here in Connecticut. They're calling you from some basement in Florida, Texas, wherever they are. And they don't know, they may be licensed with X number of companies in any given state, but they don't know all the nuances. They don't know
Every company special. 'Cause
why
there's some
certain companies.
that I wouldn't personally never want to deal with because their customer service, you try calling them, you're not getting somebody local here. I mean, good luck. Or the network really. So that's why, you really have to do the deep dive.
Like buying solar energy from either a local guy here or some guy on the phone from California. Good luck if there's a problem.
So, okay, so just so I understand this again, say I have a Medicare Advantage plan that I got online.
Yep.
And I, next time it comes to renew or something, or maybe even in between, I say, I want to go through you.
Yeah, so we can take so basically come next open enrollment, the annual enrollment, October 15th.
Yeah.
Number one, we're going to review your coverage anyways to say, are you on the right plan for you?
Okay.
If you're on the right plan, then you just stay where you are, then we just change.
Agent, like you
Change-
would be an agent,
Correct.
but the plan wouldn't cost me any.
No,
And how do we get paid?
So which is what, we'll wrap it. Yes, like I said before, if we, sign up somebody for a Medicare plan, supplement plan, financial long-term care, we get paid by whoever the company.
So it seems like it would be due to all of our advantages if we had a plan like that to go through you, someone like you.
Yes, and that's
That would have been.
ultimately somebody that knows that's been doing this. And unfortunately, our industry's kind of been changing a lot in the last few years.
This fall is gonna be interesting, so let's see, we don't even know, but there's gonna be some interesting things, and it could be on one side of the fence more than the other. But we'll see, because we're having a herd, I mean, we don't know the changes till September.
So Frank's last thing I'll leave you with. So anybody here take prescriptions? Most people do.
We're gonna tell you some little bit exciting news, because this is actually better now.
So like they passed a law that if you're taking an insulin product, the Lantus, Novolog, the max copay per month when you're on Medicare is $35. So that's new. Of course, Lantus, Novolog, it costs a little bit more than that. So somebody's eating the cost of that. The insurance. Well, next year, it's in law,
2025.
2025, the most a consumer can spend on Medicare for prescription drugs is $2,000. So
That's
imagine,
right now
imagine
in the books,
That's straight Medicare or even Medicare Advantage?
both, yeah.
both sides of the,
Standalone drug,
For all the prescriptions that you're taking.
correct.
correct. So imagine you're taking the Manjaros, the Ozempics, all your Eliquis, all your high rent district drugs.
Sounds like the Medicare budget's gonna go up substantially.
It can't sustain because Pfizer, Merck, all these companies, they're not going to give the drugs away.
No,
They're still going to sell them for the same cost. So that cost is going to be passed on to the insurance company.
So
So
what's gonna happen?
whoever's going to hit the road, we don't even know. It's like they're all,
There was just an article, if anybody wants to do some light reading, that was just released a few days ago about Medicare.
It sounds good on the surface, but it's probably not.
because there's no free lunch and
Right.
give away stuff,
And
college tuitions, whatever. Somebody's got to pay.
it's the cost for that person who's taking a lot of drugs, the expensive drugs, it's gonna be spread over all the people that have the insurance plan probably.
That's
Says
And
they're
we all-
gonna have to, everybody pays more to cover them.
Anybody here have electricity?
Maybe it's seen the bills on the other one.
Do you guys have Eversource?
yes,
So what's happened to Eversource, the old Northeast Utilities? So electricity is one of the few utilities that really can't shut people off. So they have a block of people that owe a little money to a lot of money. that they're never gonna collect. So that leaves the remaining people that are paying it. You gotta bear a bigger brunt. You throw all the storms over the years and the backlog they have there. So these increases just keep happening, until somebody says, stop, you're gouging, you're doing whatever, because they're the only game in town, even though, yeah, you can try to buy another contract with somebody else for a while. It all balances out because you're still going through Eversource and you might save for a few months here or whatever it is. But, it's the same thing. Somebody's going to have to eat the cost of all that. Because what percentage of people are spending more than 2,000 a year?
Like we just had one gentleman this past fall. Guess how many prescriptions he was on?
26.
Close, 20. And my dad said, how do you know there's not, we were saying, like, how do you know there's not a counteraction and stuff?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
who's coordinating and make sure
That's
drug A works with drug B,
all being
works with
issued by
drug
one
C.
doc.
Oh, that's tough, that's trouble.
And that's, and this and that, we have people that was the extreme, but easily on 5, 10 plus. And yeah, 8%, some of your stuff that's really relatively cheap, but yeah, it's just, we have a lot that are on the Manjaro.
Eloquist and all these, and there's always been other programs to assist people, but there's something called PAP. Anybody heard of that?
Patient assistance program, I used to manage one.
So, so basically, if your income is below, every company that sells drugs has to have, they have different guidelines, but it might be 4 times or something the poverty level. So if your income is 13, if the poverty level is 13,000, whatever the number is, they might allow 4 times that. So if you're making 52,000 or less, you might be able to get the drug from a given company at a discount or
For free.
or free, yeah. So, but how many people qualify for those PAPs? So
Yeah, and that's federal, or that's a federal?
each company,
Each company has, yeah, oh, I see.
that's part of the.
That's where, and there's also grants out there, so that even for the under 65, but sometimes you have to do a little bit of homework to see if you can get assistance. It might be calling up all these, like, if you go through like a pharmacy or somebody that can give you assistance, they'll tell you all the different numbers that you can call and something.
And sometimes mail order, maybe the drug here is the same as the price in Canada, maybe it's not.
Like I had a lady that was taking a cream. If she went through Medicare, it was $500. She went through Canadian pharmacy, it was $50. So $450 in her pocket versus the insurance. I say that's a good deal. So yes, I know we've been saturating brains. Everyone enjoy this class. I mean,
It was great. It was great.
So you can tell all your friends, if anybody, we have our contact information
I
there.
do have the little,
If anybody would like the little
Card.
card.
we're always
We know
together.
who we are, we don't know who you are, so if anybody would like to chat, don't be shy.
I've got all your information.
Well, thank you, and tell the library that you enjoyed this. This is, I mean, we really put this class together because, we wanted to educate, on this side of the fence and.
I think we should have a survey sheet. Where you